You were not supposed to feel this exhausted tonight. That is the part nobody understands about you right now. From the outside, your life still looks normal enough. You still answer people when they call. You still show up to work every morning. You still laugh at the right moments and say you are fine when someone casually asks how you've been. But lately, there has been this quiet heaviness following you everywhere, and no amount of sleep, coffee, distractions, or late-night scrolling has been able to shake it off. Something inside you has felt unsettled for a long time now. And the strange part is, you cannot fully explain why. Maybe it hit you again tonight while you were sitting alone in your car after work with the engine still running, staring through the windshield even though you were already parked in your driveway. Maybe it happened while you were lying in bed at 2:17 in the morning, staring at the ceiling with your phone glowing beside you, replaying conversations in your head that should not still hurt this much. Or maybe it was during one of those quiet moments in the grocery store when you suddenly realized how emotionally tired you really are. Not physically tired. Not the kind sleep fixes. The deeper kind. The kind that builds slowly after too many disappointments, too many unanswered questions, too many days pretending you are okay while silently carrying things nobody else sees. And what hurts the most is that part of you truly believed things would be different by now. You thought by this age your life would finally feel stable. You thought the waiting season would have ended already. You thought the doors you prayed for would have opened by now instead of staying painfully silent. But instead, it feels like every time you start hoping again, something falls apart. Plans collapse. People leave. Opportunities disappear without explanation. And after a while, even the strongest people begin to wonder if they are being ignored. That is the dangerous part about prolonged silence. Not because silence destroys you immediately, but because it slowly convinces you that nothing is listening on the other side of your prayers anymore. And lately, if you are honest with yourself, that thought has crossed your mind more than once. You tried not to say it out loud because it felt wrong to even think it. But deep down, you started wondering if maybe you were forgotten. Maybe you missed your moment. Maybe everyone else was moving forward while you somehow got left behind. Yet despite all of that, something kept pulling at your attention tonight. Something inside you refused to fully give up. You almost closed this video. You almost kept scrolling. But you didn't. And maybe that matters more than you realize right now, because sometimes the moments that change you do not arrive with noise, explosions, or dramatic signs. Sometimes they arrive quietly, in the middle of exhaustion, in the middle of confusion, in the middle of an ordinary night where someone feels 1 inch away from giving up completely. What nobody tells you about emotional exhaustion is how quietly it changes the way you see yourself. At first you only notice the tiredness. Then the overthinking. Then the distance growing between who you used to be and who you are becoming now. But eventually something even stranger happens. You stop expecting good things entirely. You still smile when other people share their success stories. You still congratulate friends when their lives finally move forward. But inside, there is this quiet voice asking why everything always seems delayed for you. Why opportunities arrive and disappear. Why relationships suddenly shift. Why certain prayers feel suspended somewhere above your life without ever fully returning with an answer. And maybe the hardest part has been watching yourself slowly lose excitement over things you once cared deeply about. There was a time when you woke up with hope. A time when you believed one phone call, one breakthrough, one new beginning could change everything. But disappointment has a way of making people emotionally cautious. After enough letdowns, you stop letting yourself fully hope because hope itself starts feeling dangerous. That is why lately you have been caught between wanting something better and protecting yourself from being hurt again. You can feel both sides fighting inside you almost every day. One part of you still believes your life can shift in ways you cannot see yet. Another part feels tired of waiting for something that never seems to arrive. And that inner conflict has been draining you more than anyone realizes. Sometimes you replay old moments in your head trying to figure out where everything started changing. Maybe it was that relationship that slowly faded even after you gave it your full heart. Maybe it was the opportunity you prayed for that suddenly disappeared without explanation. Maybe it was the season when everything seemed to fall apart all at once and nobody around you understood how close you were to emotionally shutting down completely. There are nights you still think about those moments more than you should. Like when you picked up your phone to send someone a long message explaining how deeply they hurt you, only to delete every word before pressing send because part of you already knew they would never truly understand. Or the nights you sat alone in the dark with television noise playing in the background just to avoid hearing your own thoughts too clearly. You kept telling yourself to stay strong, but strength becomes complicated when you have been carrying invisible grief for too long. And yet, despite all of this, there have been moments recently that feel impossible to ignore. Tiny moments that interrupt the heaviness in ways you cannot fully explain. A sudden warmth in your chest during complete silence. A random memory resurfacing at exactly the moment you needed it. Seeing sunlight break through clouds during one of your worst emotional afternoons and feeling, even if only for a second, like something was trying to reach you without words. You try to rationalize these things because you do not want to sound foolish. But your spirit notices what your mind keeps trying to dismiss. Deep down, you know there is a difference between coincidence and timing. And lately, life has been filled with moments that feel strangely timed. Almost as if something has been quietly guiding your attention while you were too emotionally exhausted to recognize it fully. Maybe that is why, even after everything you have been through, you still have not completely given up. Because somewhere beneath the disappointment, beneath the confusion, beneath the silence, a small part of you still feels that your story is not ending here. By now you have probably noticed that the moments affecting you the most are never the loud ones. They happen quietly. In stillness. In ordinary places. That is what makes them so difficult to explain to other people. If someone asked you directly what has been changing inside you lately, you might not even know how to answer. Because how do you describe a feeling you cannot fully prove but somehow cannot ignore either? How do you explain that certain moments lately feel almost arranged somehow, as if life itself keeps trying to pull your attention towards something deeper beneath the surface of your exhaustion? You notice it most during the quiet hours. Especially at night. There have been evenings where you came home emotionally drained, tossed your keys on the counter, and sat alone in dim light without even turning the television on. Not because you wanted silence, but because noise suddenly felt unbearable. And in those moments, something unusual happens. Your mind slows down just enough for your deeper thoughts to finally reach you. Thoughts you spend most of the day outrunning. Questions you bury beneath schedules, responsibilities, and distractions. Questions like why certain things had to fall apart the way they did. Why some people entered your life only to disappear right when you needed them most. Why every time you thought you were finally moving forward, another delay seemed to appear out of nowhere. But lately, another thought has quietly started appearing beside those questions. What if not everything that left your life was meant to stay? At first your mind resists that idea because pain always wants immediate explanations. Human nature wants clear answers, clear timelines, clear reasons. But real life rarely unfolds that way. Sometimes understanding arrives much later than the disappointment itself. Sometimes what feels cruel in one season reveals itself as protection in another. And deep down, part of you already knows this because there are things you once begged for that you now secretly feel relieved never happened. Relationships you would have lost yourself inside. Places you thought would save you but would have slowly emptied you instead. Moments that felt devastating at the time but quietly redirected your entire life away from something your exhausted heart could not yet see clearly. You remember one particular afternoon not long ago when you found yourself staring at an old photograph you accidentally came across while cleaning out a drawer. A picture from a version of your life that no longer exists. At first the memory hurt. You sat there thinking about how badly you once wanted certain things to work out differently. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of grief, you suddenly felt clarity. Not complete clarity. Just enough to realize that the person you were back then would not have survived becoming who you are now. That realization stayed with you longer than you expected. Because maybe the delays, the losses, and the silence were not random interruptions after all. Maybe they were separating you from versions of your future that would have broken you in ways you could not yet understand at the time. And perhaps that is why, even during your most hopeless moments lately, there has still been this strange invisible thread pulling you forward. Not loudly. Not forcefully. Gently. Like light slipping through blinds into a dark room before sunrise. Quiet reminders arriving exactly when your spirit is closest to giving up. A calm feeling appearing for no logical reason. A sentence finding you at the perfect moment. A memory returning right when you need perspective the most. It is almost as if something has been carefully guiding you through this season while remaining just hidden enough that you still have to choose whether or not you trust what you cannot fully see yet. You are probably noticing now that not everything inside you feels as heavy as it once did. That does not mean all your questions are answered yet. It does not mean every part of your life suddenly makes sense. There are still moments where uncertainty creeps back in, especially late at night when the world becomes quiet enough for old fears to return. But even then, something is different now. The fear no longer owns you the way it used to. The silence no longer feels completely empty. And perhaps the biggest change of all is that you are slowly learning how to sit with uncertainty without immediately assuming the worst. That is growth, even if nobody else can see it yet. Because there was a time not long ago when every delay felt personal to you. Every unanswered message felt like rejection. Every closed door felt like proof that life was moving forward for everyone except you. But now you are beginning to understand that your worth was never tied to how quickly things happened for you. Some lives unfold loudly and quickly. Others unfold slowly, quietly, almost invisibly at first. Yours has been unfolding in silence because something deeper needed to be rebuilt inside you before the next chapter could truly begin. And maybe that is why this season forced you into stillness so often. Not to punish you, but to reconnect you with parts of yourself you abandoned while chasing external validation. Think about how much more aware you are now compared to before. You notice your own emotional patterns differently. You recognize tension faster. You can feel when something disturbs your peace instead of ignoring it just to keep other people comfortable. That awareness came at a cost, but it changed you in necessary ways. The version of you who entered this season was constantly trying to earn belonging from people and situations that could never fully hold your spirit safely. But now you are becoming more selective with your energy, your trust, your attention. And even though loneliness still visits sometimes, it no longer feels exactly the same. It feels less like abandonment and more like transition. Like your life has been quietly rearranging itself beneath the surface while you were too emotionally overwhelmed to see the full picture clearly. There was a moment recently where this truth reached you unexpectedly. Maybe while walking through a store, sitting in your parked car after work, or standing by your apartment window watching rain slide down the glass in complete silence. Nothing dramatic happened outwardly. Yet suddenly you realized how much calmer your mind had become compared to a few months ago. The same life that once felt unbearable now feels survivable again. That realization matters because emotional healing often reveals itself through subtle changes first. Through breathing easier. Through sleeping slightly better. Through no longer obsessing over people who once consumed your thoughts constantly. Through beginning to trust that even if life still feels unclear, you will somehow be able to handle what comes next. And perhaps that quiet confidence is the real transformation that has been happening inside you all along. Not becoming fearless. Not becoming perfect. Becoming steadier. Becoming softer toward yourself. Becoming less desperate to force outcomes before their time. Because deep down your spirit has finally started accepting something your exhausted heart resisted for a long time. That delays are not always denials. Silence is not always absence. And some of the most important shifts in life begin invisibly long before the outside world can recognize them. Maybe the reason this season felt so long was because you were never meant to leave it as the same person who entered it. That is something you can finally begin to see now, even if only faintly. Looking back, there were moments where you truly believed the silence would swallow you completely. Nights where the loneliness felt endless. Mornings where exhaustion sat so heavily on your chest that even simple routines felt difficult to carry. There were days you questioned everything about your life, including yourself. You wondered whether you had fallen behind permanently. Whether certain dreams had quietly expired without you realizing it. Whether all the waiting, all the disappointment, all the unanswered questions meant something was wrong with you after all. But somehow, even through all of that confusion, you kept moving forward one ordinary day at a time. Sometimes barely. Sometimes quietly. But you kept going. And now, without fully noticing when it happened, your spirit has started becoming lighter again. Not because every problem disappeared overnight, but because something deeper shifted inside your understanding. You no longer see every closed door as proof of failure. You no longer interpret every delay as rejection. And perhaps most importantly, You no longer feel the same desperation to force your life into timelines that were slowly breaking your peace. There is a different kind of calm growing inside you now. A quieter kind. The kind that does not need immediate answers in order to breathe. The kind that trusts there may still be meaning unfolding even inside uncertainty. You notice this change in small moments. In the way you now sit peacefully with your coffee before sunrise instead of immediately reaching for your phone in anxiety. In the way certain memories no longer pull you backward emotionally the way they once did. In the way your mind has slowly stopped replaying old disappointments every single night searching for explanations that may never come completely. That does not mean you suddenly stopped caring. It simply means your soul is no longer trapped inside the same emotional storm that once consumed your thoughts constantly. And maybe that is the hidden miracle inside all of this. Not becoming someone untouched by pain, but becoming someone no longer controlled by it. There will still be moments ahead where uncertainty returns. Moments where waiting feels difficult again. Moments where loneliness briefly revisits you in quiet rooms or during long drives home beneath dark skies. But even then, something inside you now understands what it could not understand before. That silence does not always mean absence. That delays sometimes protect futures you cannot yet fully see. That some endings arrive not to destroy your life, but to redirect it towards something your exhausted heart could not recognize while it was still clinging to what needed to end. And perhaps tonight, more than anything else, you were simply meant to remember that you have not been abandoned in this season after all. You have been changing within it. Quietly. Slowly. Invisibly at times. Like sunlight returning before dawn fully breaks across the sky. And maybe one day soon you will look back on this chapter with completely different eyes. Not as the season that broke you, but as the season that taught you how to stop chasing peace in places that could never truly hold it for you. Until then, it is enough simply to breathe again. Enough to notice that your heart no longer feels as heavy as it once did. Enough to trust that even now, with so much still unfinished, your story is continuing in ways you cannot fully see yet.